We have a strong conviction that the market really hinges on value. It doesn't hinge on price. It hinges on value, right? So, and values is the whole experience. It's not just the outcome that you see in the mirror. It's also the experience of doing these procedures.
There's 3 very simple best practices that we have found that our customers with the highest patient retention do. Do you want to hear what they are?
Welcome back to the Technology of Beauty, where I have the opportunity to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And today is certainly no exception, because with us today, not one mover and shaker, but 2. We have Carrie Strom Jasson Gilmore from Allergan. Welcome, Carrie. Welcome, Jason. Full confession, they're my friends also. And they've come up from Irvine, home of Allergan Aesthetics. Thank you so much for coming up. I've been waiting for this for over a year, Carrie.
I know, but better late than never, right, Grant?
You bet, you bet. And Jason, that goes for you also.
Well, thanks for having us.
We get both of you.
Yep.
Movers and shakers. Okay, let's start with you, Carrie. Where'd you grow up?
I actually grew up in Irvine, California.
And where'd you go to high school?
University High School, home of the Trojans.
Yeah, I went to Catella High School, K-High, Stay High.
I think we played each other.
Yeah, my parents went to Annam High School.
You're a local guy too.
Yeah, my grandparents went there also. Yeah, I was born in St. Joe's Hospital. Where are you born?
Hogue.
Hogue, yeah.
Yep. I was born there, then I had my son Henry there too.
Well, I was born in St. Joe's, where my mother was born, my 89-year-old mother, who lives at the Balboa Bay Club, as you know. Mm-hmm. And my nephews and nieces were born there also.
I love that.
So 3 generations there.
It's a strong legacy in the OC.
Yeah. How about you, Jason? Where are you from?
The East Bay Area, Northern California. And then I went to UC Irvine. That brought me to the Irvine community.
Did you guys know each other at Irvine?
No.
In that area? No. Okay.
She went to Colorado. I went to
I'm
UCI.
much older than Jason.
Well, I'm not going to touch that. Since I'm the oldest here, I'm not going to touch that. Okay. So you grew up in Irvine, right? And you went off to Colorado.
Yes.
And then what brought you back to Irvine?
Well, after Colorado, I took my first job in pharmaceuticals at Pfizer. It was a sales rep job in Providence, Rhode Island. It was in the year 2000, and they weren't hiring too many places. And so I was very lucky to get my foot in the door in New England and Providence. And that's where I started my career at Pfizer. And then after a few years in sales, I moved into marketing in New York City. And it was after 11 years at Pfizer that I decided to move back to Irvine. Just personally and professionally, it was time. We were having babies and wanted to be closer to home. And I got an offer I couldn't refuse to move to Allergan, which is based in Irvine.
And what year did you come back to Allergan?
2011.
Were you with David Pyatt then?
Yes, he was the CEO at the time and a great CEO then and still beloved now.
Absolutely. A dear friend of ours, all of ours, right? Okay, and what did you do initially when you came back to Allergan working with David?
Oh, I was so excited. The job that I came back for Allergan was a huge part of why I left Pfizer. It was to launch Botox for its first indication in the bladder. And I had worked at Pfizer in the overactive bladder market, and so it was a nice transition. Although Botox was new, the category was familiar to me, and I knew many of the customers. And the technology is so important for patients and for the urologists, and so that was a lot of fun to be able to launch Botox therapeutic for its first bladder indication. And that's how I fell in love with Botox. Yeah. And the rest is history. A few years on the therapeutic side, and then we transitioned to the cosmetic side around 2014.
So you went to aesthetics in 2014,
yes.
Which is only 8 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
Well, right. I mean, it feels like a long time in some ways, but in other ways, there's people like you who built this market and this business and still so much to learn from.
Well, thank you very much. But I think of you as being in the aesthetics market for like 20 years. So that's news to me.
Well, I take that as a compliment.
No, yeah, you've been in it, and now you're the boss. What is your proper title? I always call you Your Highness.
Yes, that works.
Okay.
At work, they call me the president of Global Allergan Aesthetics and the senior vice president of AbbVie.
Okay, cool. How about you? You went to college where?
UC Irvine. Yeah, that's how I came to Orange County. Political science. I wanted to be a lawyer. And I fell into a startup company while I was still going to college. And that kind of took over my life as work can do.
Tell everybody the name of that startup. I remember it well.
Oh, that was actually before we met. This was 2 startups before I met you.
Oh my. Okay.
It was a little tiny company. I was actually employee number 1 that was doing digital media platform websites, and worked there. I was basically the general manager, although that wasn't the title. I probably wasn't even making $1,000 a month doing that job, but it was a great job because I learned a lot about business, bookkeeping to sales to, accounts payable, accounts receivable, all of those fun things. And that business got sold, and a colleague of mine from that company and I started another business, a startup business that was another digital media business. And that sort of, the rest was history. I never went to law school.
And that was while you were still in college, the second business?
That was
had graduated?
I had graduated. Yeah, I graduated in 2004.
Uh-huh.
And obviously had no interest in the law at that point, was much more interested in kind of startup companies. And then we started that business. I think we properly founded it in 2006.
Okay.
And then ran that for, really the next 10 years. And we had a couple of businesses that sort of spun off of that. And I met you during the course of that.
That's right.
And part of our business was in aesthetics, actually, and in lead generation in particular. And it's interesting. Allergan actually was a client of mine.
Uh-huh.
Never a substantive client. I think it was about, aesthetics is maybe about 20-25% of our business from a revenue standpoint. So it was meaningful, but not huge. And it got me kind of interested in the technology and digital media world. So never would have imagined I'd be a pharmaceutical executive.
And then how did you then get to Obalon?
So that's a very good question.
Yeah,
So ended up
trying
at
to connect the dots here.
Yeah. So after I sold my startup company, I went to work at the acquiring business as their head of sales and operations for about a year, and thought that's it was this big giant corporation based in New York, a lot of travel, wasn't my jam, and I thought I wanted to go back and start up, so I did some consulting, and Obalon actually started as a consulting contract for me. A friend of mine was the head of marketing there,
right?
And knew some folks that were there in sales. Someone we share a mutual relationship, and ended up looking at that business and thought health is interesting. Healthcare is an interesting space. It's an interesting space for someone with my background. If we can help patients find solutions to their problems. Using digital media and technology solutions, that seems like a problem worth solving. So Obalon was interesting to me because obesity, as you know, is the largest chronic disease state on the planet. It's sort of upstream of a lot of more serious illnesses, heart disease, cancers, other things like that. So it felt like if I can be part of a small team that helps solve that problem, I thought it was worth doing.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And then you left Obalon and then took a little hiatus, right?
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, you're with Uncle Al.
Yeah.
Allergan.
It's this improbable landing spot. Yeah. I think I was looking at a few different ventures, doing some consulting work, and Allergan was looking at doing, like a digital innovation project. And so that was interesting to me. I live right down the street from Allergan.
Yep.
Obviously, they have a suite of products that are just market leading, unquestionably market leading. Really enjoyed the aesthetics market. When you look at the potential size of the market, there's over 65 million people in the United States that are interested in receiving aesthetic treatments. We're connecting with fewer than 10% of those people on a routine basis. There was, just as we were coming up here, there was an Economist article that said that the current size of the aesthetics market globally is 60 billion. And it's projected to triple over the next 10 years. So you see this incredible growth in this space and the potential of it. And I thought, well, it's an interesting project. I don't think either of us, she hired me, unfortunately for her, but I don't think any of us really anticipated that the work would evolve as it has. But we've been very lucky to have, customers and relationships with people like you. You were actually my very first customer visit on this job, which was very appropriate, obviously. And you were the one that told me, you got to fix brilliant distinctions. This is a nightmare, having to check people out for 15, 20 minutes. Do you remember that visit?
I absolutely do.
And
let's talk about that. So
you want to talk about, okay.
That was a pain point for not only myself, but for all the practices.
Yeah.
And then Carrie hires you.
And I'll tell you, Jason's skill set is so important for what we do. And it's a
Indeed.
great example of how the profile of the talent that we need to drive our business moving forward continues to evolve. I mean, Jason is a small business owner, and our customers are small business owners, right? And so who better to understand the trials and tribulations and problems to be solved of our customers, right, than somebody who has been in those shoes, and even better in aesthetics. Like he said, about a quarter of your business was in the aesthetics market. So he understood the unique nuances of aesthetics, and also the customers, had great relationships with people like you and other very influential customers in aesthetics. And so I think that really was a huge opportunity for us to bring someone like Jason on. And what he's been able to do, you mentioned Brilliant Distinctions and Allé. We always joke that when I hired him, I said, you need to fix, there's this program called Brilliant Distinctions, and you need to fix it. We'll deal with everything else later. And it ended up being so much bigger than we ever thought, in all the right ways. And I never forget when you went to his office in Marina Del Rey, and it was like first week on the job, and you were parked in his office, right? And you were sitting there with the office staff helping the patients check in and check out.
Yep.
And that's no better way to understand firsthand like what needs to be solved than seeing it with your own two eyes.
And he saw how painful it was.
Well,
or how laborious it
and
was.
in hindsight, and we should talk about Allé, the progress that we've made there. I would say, in Brilliant Distinctions' defense, it was still a great program with millions of consumers that were part of it. But it's an example of what worked 10 years ago isn't going to work now.
And you've streamlined.
And we have, but we can't accept 2010 technology in 2022, just because, as you know, running the technology of beauty, it's at such a rapid pace moving forward. And so what we have now is such a better solution for Brilliant Distinctions. Like I said, it worked then, but it doesn't work now. And now we have Allé. And I'm really excited about how Allergan Aesthetics is looking at technology moving forward. From a product pipeline standpoint, we will launch more new products via our Allé technology platform than we will through our R&D pipeline.
Okay.
And of course, we will still have some very significant R&D products that we'll be continuing to launch in the next 5 and 10 years. But I'm really excited. When people ask me, what's one of the things you're most excited about, it is this Allé technology product pipeline, because in the next year or two, you're going to launch, multiple new products. So maybe Jason could talk a little bit about Allé and how it's different than Brilliant Distinctions and what we have in store for the future.
And we all want to know. So take your time. How is it different? How is it better? And Brilliant Distinctions at the time was the state of the art.
Right.
But, we've moved on.
Right.
And to your point, and now we have something that's streamlined, and you're going to introduce new products and services. So let us know.
Yeah.
Give us a look under the hood.
Yeah, no, happy to. I think, I think Carrie said it well. If you look at the legacy of Allergan, right, and you look at, these amazing products we have an amazing, sales and marketing organization, great leadership, R&D, and credit to AbbVie, really. I think post AbbVie, we've been part of AbbVie now nearly 2 years. I think I think it's correct that our R&D investments nearly doubled in aesthetics over the last couple of years. So, that will continue, obviously, be the lifeblood of our business, without question. But, what I learned watching your staff there with Brilliant Distinctions was that, as Carrie said, having run a small business, you have to wear, 1,000 hats. And maybe I'm exposing, you were right before this podcast started, you were being your own chief marketing officer, right, looking at an email that you're going to send to your patients and coordinating with your team around that. And, if you think about all of the jobs that have to be done by a small business owner, like a medical professional, one of my best friends is a dermatologist. You look at, these are very, very highly educated, extremely passionate people that are providing care to their patients. But they're also having to do bookkeeping. They're also having to think about email marketing templates. They're having to all the wonderful joys that come with running a business, right? And it's your business at the end of the day. You're on the hook financially for all of the obligations you sign up for. You sign up for a lease. You're buying equipment. You're doing all this stuff. And as we've looked at ways to help truly partner better, more closely with our healthcare providers, one of the things you can't ignore is the operational inefficiencies that technology can address. And, when I was sitting there watching your staff checking out in Brilliant Distinctions, and to Carrie's point, look, Brilliant Distinctions was very successful. You were using it.
Yes.
There was
Absolutely.
a reason
The
you were
patients
using
loved
it. Right. Patients loved it. We had over 6.5 million consumers in that program. It had over 10 years. We had tens of thousands of providers that were using it in the US. So it was clearly doing something right. Now, of course, the technology had become antiquated over time. And, as we looked at that, we thought, okay, well, that's unacceptable. Like, as a market leader, we can't, put the burden of administering our program onto your staff. That's not appropriate. But then what are all the other things that our customers need us to perform here? What are some of the things that they want? One of the things that came through loud and clear is the desire for promotional capabilities that extended beyond just simple points. And, recently, just literally in the last 2 weeks, we launched a new capability called Allé Flash, which is a personalization tool for consumers who walk into your office to scan a QR code, and then based on their treatment history, can earn additional promotional dollars towards other procedures. And the purpose of this is very simple. It's a way to enable your folks, your injectors, your cool sculpting specialists, to give them an upselling tool to help introduce and educate consumers who might be interested in another procedure that are a little shy about asking about it. And I've seen some interesting data on this where, we saw some market research recently where, 3/4 of injectors, right, even experienced injectors, wait for a consumer to talk about what they want. If you're looking at a neurotoxin treatment, but you're thinking about a filler product, the injectors wait for the consumers to bring it up. And guess what? The consumers wait for the injectors to bring it up.
Yep.
So what are the tools that we can provide to help, make it easier to have those kinds of conversations so patients ultimately get the best outcomes they can? So Allé Flash is really designed to help do that. And, I think that ultimately the project of Allé is really reflective of a larger sort of ethos in our company. We've had, for example, Allergan practice consultants for many, many years. Way before Allé was a twinkle in anybody's eye. We have always, I think, looked at ways that we can help build, durable businesses with great patient outcomes. When you think about Allergan Medical Institute and its training services, so we've always done that. And I think the extension of Allé into technology to make the operational efficiencies of our providers' offices better is really just an extension of a long history of Allergan doing that type of work. So it's a great opportunity. I love what I do.
Yeah, and that comes through. And when you started, weren't you employee number 1 in your division? And now, don't you now have well over 100 people in your division?
Some of our sales leaders like to joke around that there's like 9,000 people in my employ. It's not exactly right.
What is your title? What is your technical title? I've been asked this many times.
It depends on who you ask.
I'm asking you.
I
can ask your boss.
Yeah, she would know. She would actually know. So I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Consumer and Digital Marketing for the aesthetics business. So what that means in practice is like things like social media, for example, our TV commercials. It has a number of different flavors. As you said, it's a fairly large team now, and I was the first person in the team. It was fun. It felt like a startup.
Indeed.
When I was doing the original hiring, I'd interview people from startup backgrounds. Most of the folks that work in my group are not from pharmaceuticals. And, when I would interview them and they look at my background, they say, well, you spent, 15 years in small startups, isn't this like a culture clash? I said, not really at all. I feel like Allergan it's like Reno. It's like the biggest small company in the world. Like when you meet these people and you go to these meetings, your sales meetings or customer meetings, it really feels like a family reunion. It doesn't feel like a giant faceless corporation at all. The closeness and the intimacy of the relationships, not just inside the business, but also with the customers, is very, very, tangible and palpable. And so I enjoyed that very much. I think if that wasn't the culture, I think it would have been hard for somebody with my background coming from, small, 15, 20, 25 person company, that would have been very difficult, but it's been great. It's been fun. But yeah, I was employee 1.
Yeah, that's what I always tell everybody.
And as far as my job, I think, there's different facets to it, obviously, but I think the simplest way to characterize what I do is my job ultimately is to bring consumers into this market and keep the ones who are in it. That's how I think about it.
And when you talk about Flash, which is relatively new,
Yeah.
right? For a lot of our listeners and watchers watching this program, they maybe haven't heard of Flash.
Yeah.
And I know it's second nature to you. Could you elaborate a little more
Sure.
From the user experience? What they come in the
Right.
office, they have the QR code. We talked about the QR code. They scan it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more what Flash looks like to the consumer.
So it's very, very simple. You're right. We make everything complicated. There's
I
been a
didn't
ton
say
of work.
that, but I wanna-
We do. I mean, we do. Well, it's just like anything, right? Like, if you're doing a surgery on a patient, you have decades of training and research and understanding, and, you've spent the time to learn it. But to the end patient, it should be relatively straightforward, right? They don't need to know all of that. That's where your expertise comes in. So, obviously there's a ton of work that went into developing the personalization engine that is underneath it, right? Because obviously if you walk into my office and you see a little QR code and the front desk person says, "Hey, Grant, why don't you scan that and see if Allé will, you'll win anything." And all you do is you take a picture of that, use it just like, because of COVID now, we're all very familiar with QR code technology.
Sure, absolutely.
It will look up your Allé account if you're a member. If you're not a member, that's fine. You can register, and it will, based on your prior treatment history, match you with a potential promotion based on that. So if you've never treated with us before, it may or may not deliver a promotional offer to you.
Okay.
The whole point of it is that it gives your office an opportunity to have, an educational discussion about some of the other services that you provide. That's really, it's very, very simple
So
if you're a
the patient
consumer.
comes into the office. Is this in the front office? Is
Yeah.
it in the treatment room? Is it upon it walking into the office?
So our intent is that they check in with it.
Okay. So I take my phone, I scan the QR code, and now I hit the lottery. I mean, I win something.
Right,
it sounds
right.
like. And it's based on, it's probably something I haven't had before. Is that correct?
Right.
It may be,
More
it
than
may be,
likely?
it may likely be. It depends on certain things.
Got cross-selling.
Yeah, that's right. And it could be other things too. It could be non-financial things, points.
Okay.
We're looking at other kinds of constructs to provide.
The point is that unlike Allé, which has been traditionally a checkout, right? You get your procedure done and then you
Yes.
check out and you get your points, which we'll continue to do.
Okay.
This now also introduces a check-in component through Allé Flash. So I come into Dr. Stevens' office, I do my QR code, surprise and delight.
Right.
Looks like I got an opportunity to add to $100 off of another treatment as long as I'm in here for the first treatment. And then the staff is saying, "Oh, congratulations, Carrie. This is great. And we'll make this happen. And when you come in, you can get these 2 treatments instead of the 1 and use these points that you just got." And then after the treatment, I go ahead as usual and check out based on the procedures that I got.
Right.
Okay. So we've kind of gamified it in a sense.
That's it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get. It's kind of like an Easter egg hunt. Right?
Do you have the Starbucks app?
Yes, absolutely.
The 3 p.m. little promotion they send you,
That's
have an
right.
iced drink or whatever. It's the same thing. It's just another way for our providers to engage their consumers, to keep it fun and interesting, to keep, patients coming back. Retention's a big part of our strategy. Allé is a massive program from an investment standpoint. We look at, things like patient retention at the practice level. Our APCs do a lot of this work with their, do you have an APC? I hope so.
What is an APC?
An Allergan practice consultant.
Of course I do.
So, okay, great. So
I don't call them an APC, but
you probably call them by their first name.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
imagining
right.
at this point, you hopefully have known them a long time.
Yes.
So, that type of analysis, one of the great, benefits that team provides to our customers is they'll come in and they'll actually take a look at, how long are your patients with you on average? And what are things that we can do, simple things that we can do to help, keep patients happy and keep them coming back. And so, this is another tool to help do that. The whole Allé loyalty program, the ability to earn points is really about bringing patients back and keeping them happy. So this is just another kind of step in that direction.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I'm really happy you're doing this. The Flash program seems like so much fun, and the front office likes it. So,
And it is for sure fun and surprise and delight, but it's also, like Jason said, grounded in strategy and based on insights that we know are important to our customers and our patients. Like you said, if there's an opportunity for a patient who's getting treated with a toxin to also get treated with a filler. And that conversation isn't happening because neither one is bringing it up. Flash can help to prompt that discussion in a way that is easy for everyone to have. And you mentioned patient retention. Patient retention is another great example of something that's important to everyone. And unfortunately, right now with toxins, about half of all consumers who start with a toxin don't get their second toxin or their second treatment. And we know that that opportunity could be up to 70 or 80%. So why is it at 50? And how can we use technology like this if we, can leverage our personalization engine to help nudge somebody to get that second treatment via Flash or via our other efforts to communicate with our consumers? That's great for the consumer and it's great for the customer.
So when the customer's home and she has been away from the practice for a few weeks or months, does she get nudged via text or email, or do you nudge her now that she's part of Allé?
Jason, as a part of the team that Jason's built, he's brought a whole new discipline and function into Allergan Aesthetics called personalization. And I'll let him speak to the really important work that this personalization team has done to do just that.
Okay.
Yeah, part of our job really is to keep patients, Carrie mentioned keep them engaged, and patients who have a good experience, but otherwise get busy. If you think about who our patient population is it working professionals? My poor dentist has texted me for like 5 years to come in, right?
Get your teeth clean?
Yeah, it's like and I always intend to do it, and I never do it. But what we want is to make it easy to remain, for aesthetics, really, to be top of mind for our consumers. We've been working towards this through personalization, which is, you mentioned the nudge, right? It could be a text, it could be a social media ad, it could be an email message, it could be all of the above over the course of a period of time. We don't want to be harassing our consumers, obviously, but we want to make it easier for them to continue that engagement with their HCP, right?
Yep.
So, this is really the work that we're doing. Flash is part of that. And it's working. We're looking at, our retention metrics over the Allé database, and we're seeing meaningful improvement year over year in our retention rates, which I think is great for the industry. And I mean, really, we do think about it at the industry level. We don't really think about it at the Allergan level. And I'll give you an example. So when we launched Allé Rewards last year.
When Brilliant Distinctions turned into Allé.
Yeah, when we evolved from Brilliant Distinctions to the Allé program, we had a few sort of innovations we wanted to make sure. One was checkout had to be dead simple.
Yes.
Right. And, 94% of our, we've done a bunch of surveys on this, as you'd imagine, to make sure we got the job right. 94% of customers say that it's a good to excellent experience. So I think we've nailed that job. That's good. You can check out now in under 20 seconds.
Right. Seamless now. It's easy.
It should be easy. If you think about this industry, we have a strong conviction that the market really hinges on value. It doesn't hinge on price. It hinges on value, right? So, and value is the whole experience. It's not just the outcome that you see in the mirror. It's also the experience of doing these procedures. And we had to make it easy. And, sitting there watching your staff, it was unacceptable. Right.
And value can be expressed a lot of different ways, one of which is time.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the most important asset, valuable asset is time.
That's exactly right.
So if you streamline it, then you're making it more valuable because you're conserving our time.
That's exactly right. And we want to conserve staff time and patient time.
Right.
So that they enjoy that. And so, we also have made other improvements. We started to offer points for all procedures. I think, well, not maybe all, but 55 additional non-Allergan procedures where patients can earn points on a whole slew of other things. And the reason we did that was very simple, is that this retention question exists for all products, for all companies, right? And the root of it is that patients get busy, right? They forget, they move on.
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. And so if we can provide incentives for patients to stay engaged with their healthcare provider, if we can provide those nudges, as you put it, for them to come back, I think that's good for the whole industry. And so those are some of the improvements that we're still working on it. We haven't figured it all out yet. When we get to 80%, then I can ride off into the sunset.
And I'd say that the team has also dug up some very interesting, actionable insights that our healthcare providers could implement to increase retention in their own practice. There's 3 very simple best practices that we have found that our customers with the highest patient retention do. Do you want to hear what they are?
I sure do.
Okay.
We all do.
Number 1 is full facial, this is on the injectable side, a full facial assessment with optimal dosing, meaning the customers that have the best retention are usually dosing and treating in a way that they're getting a full outcome and not being afraid of like, well, I'm afraid they not want to pay for this, so I'll just put so many units here and sort of do less. They're not afraid to do optimal assessment and give the patient a full outcome.
Okay.
Number 2 is the whole dentist model. Rebook before you leave.
Right.
Seems simple, but not everybody does it. And so I know for my appointments that I at least know that I've got another one on the book. If I have to change it, I can, but at least I have an appointment to change, right? And then number 3 is the option of a touch-up and this communication at the 2-week mark. Now, imagine if you're a brand new patient or this is your first time getting an aesthetic treatment, you don't know what to expect.
Right.
And that peace of mind knowing that my healthcare provider is going to check on me in 2 weeks. If for some reason something's not quite right, they're going to fix it for me. And often they don't take advantage of it because they don't need to, but it's that peace of mind that they know they can. And that all plays into this value equation and this customer experience that drives higher patient retention. Again, great for the patient because they're getting more consistent, better outcomes over a longer time, and very valuable for the customer to retain that patient.
And what's your recommendation regarding the cost of the touch-up?
Every practice does it differently.
Right. So what's the most successful? If you were starting your own practice today, you had your own practice, Carrie Aesthetics.
Which I'm not doing, but what I have, when I've talked to customers who are doing this really well, they bundle it all in to they don't want to feel like the patient has to pay again.
Yeah.
And often it's a unit here or there, or maybe it's nothing and it's just looking and saying, okay, this actually looks great, showing a before and after. But I think it's about making them feel like it's all taken care of and they're getting that white glove treatment.
What if it's a syringe of filler?
Then I think that there's an opportunity. There's a few opportunities there. One is which is even better because if they're, I guess in this case they're not a toxin patient, they're a filler patient. So you're able to take good care of them. You're able to do all those other things, rebook them for the next appointment. You're engaging them in Allé.
Right.
And seeing, and then so there's opportunities to take that, a lemon to lemonade moment.
Yeah.
And I believe that, and I found as a consumer myself, when this is the way that the people I'm working with treat me, that endears a lot of loyalty in the long term. It's a short-term investment up front, but it's a long-term payoff on the other side.
And I totally agree with Carrie. I think, you know this better than we do. A lot of this is psychology, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's that sense that the provider cares about me as the patient, and that 2-week touch-up, whether it's filler or toxin, oftentimes they don't even end up using a product at all. It's just that talking through how do you feel about this, especially if you're a new person and you've just jumped into this. You've never done an aesthetic procedure before. And we have, a historically high number of net new patients coming into our category now, as everybody knows. And there's many places you can look to prove that. Those patients require a higher touch earlier on than patients who've been with you for 15 or 20 years. And so just having that 2-week touch point, it could, for some of these patients, they're too busy. They're not going to take the time to physically come back.
Or I've heard they do it over Zoom.
They'll do it over Zoom. They'll even do it over text.
Or text.
It's
just a touch point.
How are you feeling? And practices that do that will increase those 3 things that she mentioned will increase their retention by 16%. Which, when you look at the lifetime value, every 500 neurotoxin patients a practice retains is $1 million in free cash flow over the lifetime of those patients. So if you just do those 3 things that she's mentioning, rebook, 2-week touch-up, proper dosing, that adds up very meaningfully for a practice over the lifetime.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why I started a long time ago with the idea of patients for life.
Patients for life, exactly.
And that whole patients for life concept.
Right.
And the lifetime value of a patient in a plastic surgeon's office is much higher than what you just said, because we typically will do up to 3 operations in a 20-year period.
Wow.
But all of them have at least 2.
Yeah.
And we've documented this repeatedly over 25 years now, because when I did the first study, I had 20 years follow-up. And I started with my first 200 patients. And I've done it now. I've tracked it all the way to 35 years.
Wow.
And the lifetime value of a patient in a plastic surgeon's office is between 80 and 120,000 per patient.
Yeah, I believe that.
And we have hard data to show it, not just isolated like here and there. It's funny. Yesterday I did 2 surgeries, and one patient had been with me 20-something, and the other one looked at me and said, "I've been your patient for 30 years." I said, "Please don't tell anybody." She said to me, "When I was 70 years old, you did my breast reduction, and I told you I would never have another surgery from you again." Today, yesterday, she's 85 years old, 15 years later, and she had her breasts relifted. And I said, "You remember I told you when you're 70, if you care how you look when you're 70, you're going to care how you look when you're 80. And here she is, 85. Her back was hurting a little bit, her neck and so forth, but mainly she wanted perkier breasts. And you know what? I have a lot of 70 and 80-year-old patients who care how they look and so forth. Now, Jason, you shared something with us that I want to re-emphasize because I think some of the viewers and listeners didn't hear what you said.
Okay.
And I want to go back because what you said, if I heard you right, is with Allé, you have 55 other products from other companies, non-Allergan companies, right?
Correct.
Would you please state that again? Because I don't think people know it,
Yeah.
and I don't think they believe it, to tell you the truth. So, you know, Allergan sets the whole tone for the industry. Let's face it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The best of the best, right? And yet here you have this rewards program and all the different things that Allé does. But no one would ever believe that you actually reward and incentivize people who consume other products. So can you tell me again? And I'm not editing it out. I want you to look at me, tell the consumers what you said, because this is huge.
Yeah, it's actually a relatively lesser known feature of the Allé program. We offer points, to earn points on procedures that are not Allergan procedures.
So
give
instance,
a couple examples.
So examples. Let's say I have a Restylane product injected in my face. Do you reward me?
Yes, we do.
You can earn points for anything, whether it's our products, somebody else's products, whether it's a laser hair removal, something outside of even the care areas where we provide.
Microdermabrasion.
Are you guys listening to this?
Yeah.
Did you just hear that? Allergan is rewarding you even if you're using non-Allergan products. Did you hear that?
And the intent, like Jason said, the problem to solve there is making it easier for our customers to use. So they can have the single platform where they can have their patients earn points for anything that they're doing.
Correct.
That's remarkable.
It's an ease of use.
And so generous.
Well, I mean, we have to believe in our products, right? At the end of the day, the market dynamics with retention, with that 50% churn rate that Carrie pointed out, that's true of aesthetics in general. Like every company's products face that headwind, right? We need to keep patients in our market. We need to make it easier for our providers to keep their patients in the market, and we have to. I mean, we are the market leader, as you said. You know, we have the commercial capacity to do this type of work. We can do it. We have to lead from the front. And then we have to believe that on the backside of that exercise, if more patients are staying in the aesthetics market, you know, our products will stand on their own 2 feet. So that's the whole reason for it. And if a cynic was sitting here, just to be fair to the cynics that are out there, you know, ultimately, this isn't some data play. It's not some share play. That's not how we think about it. And the reason why is when you look at our market, and you say, okay, there's really 65 million people. When I first joined Allergan, there was this upside down pyramid chart that every single company that's a publicly traded company has, right?
Yep.
It's that upside down pyramid.
We've all seen it.
We're Widget Incorporated, right? And 7 billion people want to buy widgets, and we have the widgets, and everybody's going to buy our widget, right? That pyramid. So I saw that same pyramid from Allergan. There's 65 million consumers in the injectable market who are considering. And then you look at the flow through and you say, well, okay, if we're treating, you know, less than 10%, depending on how you look at it, where are all these people, right?
Right.
The market, okay, this is still a very, in spite of all of the best efforts, you know, of all of the marketing, The market's growing like crazy, but we still haven't reached, of that 65 million, there's 90% of them that are still sitting on the fence. That's all of our competition. It's the status quo bias of the potential patient.
Right.
It's not fighting like trench warfare, right? We're not
Yeah.
fighting trench warfare here.
No.
You know, we want responsible competition in this market. Any company that's going to come with real innovation, including our own, frankly, it has to take things like training seriously, technology seriously, marketing seriously. That is where this market grows, right? So something like providing points on other procedures is really about how do we keep those patients coming back and happy. And then over time, the hope would be, obviously from Allergan's point of view, that they'll use our products too, right? If you look at your patients who are spending, you said between $80,000 and $120,000 over the lifetime value, I would hope that a decent proportion of that spend was on Allergan products.
Absolutely. And you have 5 buckets, and I want to go into one of them right now with you, Carrie, and that's body contouring. You acquired Cool Sculpting from Zeltiq a few years back, and then you've innovated, and you've offered then Cool Tone for muscle stimulation, and subsequently now Cool Sculpting Elite. Tell us a little bit about the Elite package, the Elite opportunity, and then what do you see in the future for Cool Sculpting or body contouring as it relates to the Allergan portfolio?
Well, our vision for body contouring is to make it the third strategic pillar. We have toxins, we have fillers, and we want body contouring to be that third leg of the stool, as they say. And why? Why? Because when you think about all the unmet needs that consumers have in aesthetics, forget about the solutions that Allergan has. Just think agnostic of Allergan or anyone else. When you ask thousands of consumers, what bothers you aesthetically? The number one concern, body fat. Makes sense, right? Number 5 concern, cellulite. And then lines and wrinkles and folds and volume in the face are like number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? They're important because we have really great solutions to them, and we should capitalize on that. But then how do you go into these incremental areas where there's so much unmet need for consumers and so much opportunity for all of us? And that's why we're building out our body contouring pillar. As you mentioned, its foundation is Cool Sculpting. And Cool Sculpting Elite, and we're continuing to launch Cool Sculpting Elite as we convert our base of Cool Sculpting systems to this next generation technology, which is much more efficient and can help drive what we know are better patient outcomes when you're optimally treated. It's sort of the same insight we were talking about with patient retention. Like, let's not just underdose somebody where they're still paying for something, but they're not getting a full outcome. Give them an optimal treatment or treat to transformation. And we know that usually happens over 2 treatment cycles. And with a technology like Cool Sculpting Elite, it's more efficient and more likely to get to that key outcome. And I mentioned cellulite. So we announced our close of the acquisition of Soliton, and we're very excited to bring that technology to life. We'll spend the next amount of time kind of understanding the technology now that we own it and working through it and looking to launch it when we're ready to rock and roll. But that is huge unmet need, right? And
Yes.
So we're excited to have multiple technologies that can solve multiple unmet patient needs in the body space. We also know that it's often the same aesthetic patient, right? The same patient who's interested in body fat, muscle toning, cellulite is also going to be a potential patient for injectables. And that's where we see the opportunity for us to really drive this portfolio in a way that we're taking care of the patient's needs, but also for our customers, that when they're working with us, they're able to make it simple and easy to just have these products to really convert their patients to lifetime patients.
And that's certainly where Flash would come in also to introduce new products, right? And because some people maybe haven't heard of Soliton or the Resonics. And I know it's not out commercially quite yet.
Nope.
But that will be coming for sure. And Cool Tone is another example of something that a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
Certainly the new Cool Sculpting Elite. I will tell you, I'm a proud owner of a couple Cool Sculpting Elites, and we couldn't be happier, which is not to take anything away from the other Cool Sculpting. We love it all.
Right. It's like we were talking about with Brilliant Distinctions and Allé. They're all good, but it's nice to upgrade to new technology, and that's what we're doing with Cool Sculpting Elite.
Absolutely. What's going on in the breast implant business?
Well, you're a perfect example of why the breast implant business is so important. It's critical to our plastic surgeons. Breast augmentation always has been and always will be a top procedure that our customers do, and that's why we want to be a part of it. And so I would just say, as plastic surgeons continue to be important to us, we want to take care of our plastic surgeons, whether it's in the hospital setting where we have multiple products for breast reconstruction, or in the aesthetic cosmetic setting. And that's sort of our North Star, as we think, as we're looking through our own pipeline, and we're looking at external opportunities, is what else can we do to take care of our plastic surgeons in both of those settings, and then in the aesthetic setting to convert to the rest of our portfolio to make them a lifetime patient.
Right. And tell me a little bit about skincare. You have Skin Medica, correct? What can we expect in the future at Allergan in terms of Skin Medica?
Skin Medica is a really important part of our portfolio because of all the reasons we talked about before. It's this idea of converting from a procedure to a take-home. It's this idea of engaging consumers in their aesthetic self-care with products they can be using every single day at home. It's an opportunity to help our customer to dispense Skin Medica in the office and also online as we bring our e-commerce solutions to our customers. And now that we're a part of AbbVie, Jason mentioned our R&D budget has nearly doubled, and that's benefiting Skin Medica as well. And so we'll have a steady cadence of launches over the next few years. We'll be able to bring new products into the Skin Medica platform and do everything we can to take care of our patients. In skincare, it's anti-aging, it's hyperpigmentation, it's sunscreen, right? There's so many different categories that we can help with there.
You touched on R&D, and I wanted to come back to that because you can assume new products and goods and services as a company through R&D or by acquisition.
Right.
So from a corporate point of view, what's your appetite for acquisition, M&A type things? Or do you want to build everything internally? Or do you have an appetite for going outside of Allergan and acquiring goods, products, services? What's your philosophy there, if you can share it with us?
I mean, it's definitely both. We've seen since the AbbVie acquisition in May of 2020, we've already done a few deals. So I mentioned Soliton, which was bringing us into the cellulite category. We also acquired a filler company called Luminera, and that closed in 2021. And what it brought us is a product that we didn't have in our portfolio. So to your point, we're strategic about, we have a really strong pipeline internally, but if there's anything that we don't have that's complementary, we would like to look outside for it. And that's what we did with Luminera. It brought us into the biostimulatory space. And so the product that we were most excited about, Luminera, is called Harmonica. It is a very unique combination of calcium hydroxyapatite plus HA in the same syringe. And this new hybrid injectable, HA plus biostimulatory product is going to be very important in Brazil, where the biostimulatory market is bigger than anywhere. It'll take a few more years with the FDA to bring it into the U.S., but we're committed to doing so. And that's a great example with Soliton into cellulite and Luminera into biostimulatory fillers, where we didn't have it in our pipeline, so we looked externally to bring it in.
So will it be called
Harmonica?
Harmonica, like harmonica?
Or
harmonica?
You say it like you do the instrument, but it's spelled differently. And the way you can imagine it is because, like I said, it's an HA plus calcium hydroxyapatite. You got the haka, like harmonica, is all. When you see the branding, it'll all make perfect sense.
Okay. And we'll have that in the States, hopefully, in the next few
years.
Fantastic. And there are other products and services that are out there, and I know you've been looking at some, and it sounds to me like you're interested in cellulite. You just purchased the Soliton Resonics, which is using sound waves to smooth skin, if you will. It sounds like you're committed to the body in terms of fat, but also smoothing the skin, or of that business of cellulite. And you said it was a number 5, and you said number 1 was fat. What's 2, 3, and 4? So
number 1 is unwanted body fat.
Right, I got that.
Number 2 is under eyes. Whether it's dark circles or crepiness or malar edema, it's just under eyes in general.
Got it.
Understanding that's a complex multimodal anatomy, but the way consumers talk about it is under eyes. Number 3 and 4 are basically hair where you want it and hair where you don't want it. So hair, for
on top of your head.
Yes, and then also hair where you don't want it in terms of like laser hair removal. And then cellulite was number 5.
Interesting. Well, I talk to a lot of women who, obviously, my whole career has been spent talking to women, right? And cellulite, I would say, is much higher than number 5. I know you've done the market research. I'll defer to your researchers and so forth. But in my experience, women are very concerned about having smoother skin and smoothing out their cellulite. And they all think they have cellulite, whatever. We can't even agree on what to call it. Some people cellulite, cellulite, and so forth. So anything you have that smooths skin, be it Soliton, Resonics. Are you going to keep the name Resonics?
We are working through all of that now. And like you said, it's not commercial. So we're hunkering down on the launch plans for that. But to your point about cellulite, I do think it's a massive unmet need. And I think it's also an example of a therapeutic area that is multimodal in nature. There'll be multiple solutions that can work complementary, just like many different products and categories we're in.
I totally agree. And whenever I'm asked about cellulite, I'm convinced it would be multimodal approaches to it because it's not just one thing.
Right.
And it's not one appearance.
Exactly.
Somebody calls it hail damage, which I never heard before in my life. Ice picks, all dimples,
right.
And then waviness. There's just so many manifestations. But really what it is somebody not feeling comfortable in their own skin, no pun intended, because it's irregular. It's not smooth. Right.
And
it seems to be a disorder or occurrence, I hate to say disease, that is uniquely to women, that women have it. And, I've heard 85, 95%. I think 100% of women think they do have it. And anything you can provide to them and to us as practitioners to help smooth the skin is going to be a welcomed addition to our armamentarium. So many women are concerned about the smoothness of their hips, their thighs, their buttocks, and to that end, also they've been sold a bill of goods historically. Yeah. Right. There's been a lot of lotions and potions and unmet expectations, and so to the extent you can keep doing that and you can provide Allergan quality approaches to smoothing, I applaud it and look forward to you doing it. And maybe we're going to backfill with those biostimulators and HAs in addition to smoothing.
Yes,
and that's
definitely
I think
multimodal.
Where we're headed.
And I agree with you completely, Grant. I know we've talked about this for a long time, and you've done a lot of work in this area. I think it's the ultimate in confidence. And this is one of the many examples of the work that we all do in aesthetics. It is about confidence, and that is our mantra at Allergan Aesthetics, is about empowering confidence. And I think these solutions for cellulite are right up that alley.
And that is what it's all about, actually. It's confidence, right? And people feeling as good as, or looking as good as they feel, and giving them that confidence to wear that garment or to throw away that garment that they're hiding behind, right? And that's the key right there. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. It's about restoring confidence. And you guys have done a great job. So we could have this talk forever. I know we could do this forever, as we have as friends. But I want you to look in your crystal ball. I saw you brought your crystal ball, Jason. I saw it underneath your
in my backpack.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to go to Carrie last. But to you, Jason, what do you see in the future? You've been involved in this business for a while now, and you are certainly setting the trends, with what you're doing, all the digital stuff you're doing. You actually have seen over the mountain. I know you have. So tell us what you see over the next 1, 3, 5 years. What are we going to be looking at?
If I was to think about, over the next 5 years, where does this market really go? I think if we do our jobs responsibly, and I mean that in a collective sense, it is a real blessing to be in a market like this. If you're on the care providing side of the equation, how important, and how profound the outcome can be, even for something that might take 5 or 10 minutes and is injected through a needle, that can change the way someone perceives themselves fundamentally. And that is really, a very deep connection. And I think if we in industry do our jobs and continue to invest in creating those kinds of connections, whether we do that digitally, whether we do that through marketing tactics, whether we do it through our training programs, as long as we continue, I think, to take that relationship very seriously, the macro trends, things like social media, things like the youthening of the aesthetic patient, those trends will continue, but only so long as we, I think, treat that relationship very responsibly. So I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we could see, just an incredible explosion of this market. You could see, penetration rates triple or quadruple. You could see, the elusive male patient that we've always thought, your ESPN, cool sculpting commercials. I still remember hearing them on the 405. Those trends that we have always wondered would ever really come to pass. I think we're starting to see them come to pass.
Yes.
And, I know, Carrie and the other leaders at Allergan certainly take that very seriously. So I think that, what I would like to see, what I would hope to see is a continued sustained growth in this market, driven collectively by us in industry and by you as the healthcare provider.
I would agree with that entirely. How about you, Carrie?
When I look into the crystal ball.
Look into your crystal ball. What are we going to be looking at in the next 5 years?
I think that in the future, starting now, that the face of aesthetics will become much more diverse. And I think that it's already happening, and it will continue to happen as we make a few very important priorities come to life. So when we think through the typical clinical trial patient right now in aesthetics, it's for the most part 80% white women. Mm-hmm. And that's the root of where it needs to change, because if you are only studying white women, then why would we expect more and more diverse people to get into aesthetics? And to Jason's point, that will be one of the keys to growing this market, is reaching more different types of people and bringing them into aesthetics. And we're excited because at Allergan specifically, we're doing so many more clinical trials because we have so much more investment in R&D, that we have the opportunity to reach out to different clinical trial investigators and help bring more diversity into the clinical trial patient base. So that's one thing. I'd say also with product development, we need to have an eye on developing products that meet the needs of all sorts of different types of people and patients. And then with marketing. And, marketing is something that you can't just, put one face of aesthetics on. That's the beauty of our business. It's about preserving individuality. Everyone has a different definition of what beauty is. And when it comes to representing diverse beauty, we have to make sure we strike the right balance. It's not, representation or without tokenization, right? We have to make sure that we are inclusive of all sorts of different types of people. Mm-hmm. And if we do those things, we'll be able to grow the market. We'll be able to have technologies and trainings that meet the needs of all sorts of different people. And like I said, it will drive a more diverse face of aesthetics in the future.
And as you said, you're already starting it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're looking into the future, but I know Allergan has already started this. And I've seen it, and I applaud the work of Allergan.
Thank you. And we have to, because this is not like a 1 or 2 year program. No, this is something that we're committed to. It's a generational investment as you think through the clinical trial patients, as you think through the healthcare providers, to make sure that we have diverse healthcare providers that can take care of their diverse patients. This is something that is just the way that we do business moving forward.
Yes. Absolutely, and I've had the good fortune of interviewing Richard Gonzalez from AbbVie, and he is committed to that, as are you as the president, and you as the executive vice president, senior vice president. And I applaud that, and thank you very much as a practitioner, someone who's been in this business for many years. And I would be remiss if I didn't publicly thank you for something else, and that is for being a premier partner for the Aesthetic Society, the American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. Allergan is one of the premier partners supporting us and our mission for education and patient safety, which is consistent with Allergan's mission, really, when you think about it. So again, thank you very much.
And the Aesthetic Society has always been such a fabulous partner to Allergan Aesthetics. I know when you were president, that's when our relationship really started, and all of the presidents have been such great partners. And I'm really excited about the diverse faces of presidents at the Aesthetic Society.
Yes,
as
Jennifer.
Dr. Weldon and after her, Dr. Haas are able to take the reins.
That's right. So it's long overdue, about time. I champion all women as heads of all the different committees under my presidency. And I'm so happy that we have a female president finally after all these years. And then we have another one, Tracy Pfeiffer. Mm-hmm. So we're doing great in that regard. So anyways, thank you very much for making the drive up, both of you. Carrie, Jason, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Erin sends her love.
It was great to see you. It was great to see Tux the Double Doodle.
Yes.
And
Tux has been quiet underneath here the whole time. And thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, Grant.
Oh, it's
Thanks,
an absolute pleasure. And I want to thank all of you for joining us again on this exciting episode of The Technology of Beauty, where I do have the opportunity to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And you can see today I had 2 movers and shakers from the beauty business. Thank you guys very much. Safe travels, and I'll see you next Tuesday. And you can also watch us on YouTube at any time. Go to YouTube, The Technology of Beauty. We have over 50 episodes that you can watch. See you soon.